In this video, we will investigate the new Vray Vision tool. We already introduced this tool in a previous video, and this is a new feature, a new tool that can help us to create interactive scenes that we can navigate, we can explore, and we can check, for example, the exteriors and the interiors. We can make a flight above the building, or also we can get inside and make a walkthrough, just like we do here in SketchUp, basically, but with the photorealistic rendering that we know we can do with VRAY. So we can start VRAY Vision by clicking on this icon on the VRAY for SketchUp main toolbar, or we can go into the extensions, VRAY, VRAY Rendering, and start VRAY Vision. This is gonna open up the panel, there you go, and should be already synchronized with the scene that you have in SketchUp. So another way we can use VRAY Vision is to use the VRAY Scenes by clicking in the open. So I can click here and I can open up a previously saved VRAY Scene. And I can save VRAY Scene from any other software like 3ds Max or Cinema 4D or Maya or whatever. So if I save from there a VRAY Scene, then I can open it up here. So let me find it here. I saved this into a precise folder in my computer, which I called Vray Scene, and this is it. So I will click and open it up, and this is gonna load the scene. There we go. So you can see here that it's the exact same scene. Now, how can we export VRAY scenes? And again, this is useful not just in SketchUp, but in any other software which uses VRAY as a plugin. So let's go here to the extensions and go to VRAY, and again VRAY Rendering, and here you will find also Export VRAY Scene. So if you click here, you can select a folder, you can give a name to the file that you are exporting. You can see here I've already exported this one here. It's a VR Scene in the VR Scene format, and then you just need to save it, and that's it. Now you can open it up here, or you can open the scene also in other software, and of course only if you have VRAY installed in that particular software. Okay, so this is our scene here, and we can start to interact with the scene just by using the mouse buttons. So if I scroll the wheel, I can make the zoom. If I hold the wheel, I can make the pan. Right click again, the zoom, and left click, I can orbit around. And this is the standard navigation system. We can also find this in SketchUp. But here in the VRAY Vision, we also have another way to navigate the scene, which is more similar to video games. Well, the logic behind the VRAY Vision is similar to the ones used in the video games. So this is actually a render, but instead of rendering each time like an interactive rendering, so to show you the interactive rendering, we just go to the VRAY frame buffer and we run this using this button here. Now this is interactive rendering. So if I move the view here, if I change anything, it's gonna re-render all over and all over again without ever stopping. It's gonna go always in a kind of a loop and re-render everything. Now this is only interactive. We can call this one real-time render because it's actually not re-rendering everything, but just small things. And it's doing, you can see here in the top right, is doing like 20 frames per second. Sometimes it goes to 30 frames per second. Now this depends also on the power of your machine. But what it's actually doing is doing a lot of renderings without showing you the calculation phase every time. Now, how is that possible? Well, this is possible because a lot of information is stored into this file, into this view. So, for example, the lights, the shadows, the materials are like baked or built into the scene. So it doesn't have to re-render everything again, but just small things. Okay, now let's see what all these tools here in this toolbar are useful to. So the first one here is if you want to link the camera and the sun to the original SketchUp scene. So if you deactivate this, this is gonna be autonomous from the SketchUp camera and the SketchUp sun. And we already saw how we can move the sun, but we will see this again. So if you hold the Shift key and click with the left mouse button, you can change the position of the sun in terms of height, like that, and in terms of position. So I can change the position. I can actually see the sun there in the horizon. Okay, and this is also working with the auto exposure setting, but we can also change that later and make it manual. But the first thing you need to know is that if you hold the shift and the left mouse, you can change the position of the sun. And if you hold the shift and the right mouse, you can change the luminosity. So this can become really bright, or you can dim down the intensity of the lighting. Okay, so you can pick the balance here that you want. Let's proceed now. So the other one is to open up VRAY Scene. We already saw that. And the third one is giving you a lot of information about shortcuts, like the one that I just told you. So if you go down here, you can see Shift plus left mouse is gonna move the sun, and Shift mouse right is gonna change the sun intensity, and also Shift mouse middle is gonna change the exposure. So the exposure, you can change it automatically or manually. So if you hold the Shift and the scroll wheel. Okay, and F5 is gonna reset the sun position and lighting changes to match the original scene state. And also you will find a lot of other information here, pretty useful. For example, we can find information about the fly mode. So if we press tab, we can switch from the standard navigation to the fly mode. Now the fly mode is similar to what happens in video games. So in first-person shooters, when you can move around using the WASD keys and also the Q and E to move up or down, and also space to change the speed and increase the speed. But we will see this in just a minute. But remember that you can find all the information about the shortcut keys right here in the info panel. The next one, it's about the framing of the view. So you can see here, if I change the size, it's gonna show these bands, these gray bands. And this is because it's trying to replicate the resolution that I have in the V-Ray render settings. And this is gonna change. You can change this and use all the space that you have here in the viewer, or you can match the resolution in the V-Ray render settings. So the aspect ratio and the height and the width that you have in the V-Ray render settings. And the next one is the camera navigation mode. So this is probably the most interesting because it can switch to this fly mode, which is kind of similar again to the video game. So we can move around and create like this interaction with the camera, which looks like a drone view or a bird view flying around the architecture. Or we can press the Q to go down or the E to go up. And if we go down here, we can start to move inside with the WASD, and we can like do a walkthrough inside our building and then go out and so on. So we can definitely explore interactively every part of our architecture. These are the movement tools, and while you're moving, you can click on the left mouse and change the view. So you can, like when you are watching around or looking around in reality, you can change the view. And well, also here you will find the instructions. So this can be used for looking around. And also, again, if you hold the spacebar, you can increase the speed if you have very large scenes, or you can hold Control and plus and Control and minus to increase and decrease the speed. Or you can do everything from here if you feel more comfortable. So if you go in the settings, you have the switch of the fly mode on and off, and you can change the speed from here. The mouse sensitivity also, it's important. You need to find your balance. You need to fix this until you feel comfortable with the movements. So this is the part concerning the fly mode in the settings, but we also have other things here in the settings. We're gonna get there in just a few minutes. Okay, so you can see here I have decreased the speed, the sensibility, and well, do that until you find yourself comfortable. Let's move on to the next one, which is the exposure. So this is automatic exposure enabled. This means that if, for example, I get inside here, well, if I change from a really bright part of my scene into a pretty dark part of my scene, the auto exposure is gonna fix that. You saw change the luminosity just when I get inside here. There you go. Now, if I switch this off, this means that I have to change the exposure manually. And again, I can do that with the Shift key and middle mouse. Okay, by moving the mouse a little bit and holding the scroll wheel down. But also I can change this from the settings. And this is where the auto exposure, it can be turned on and off, and also where it can be manually set. Okay. And well, then we have the settings panel. In the settings panel, we have a lot of things here, and you probably know some of these terms, but if you don't worry, because we're going to talk about many of these in later videos. So for example, here the proxy, it's something that it's an object, basically a V-Ray object that will help you to optimize your scene by reducing the number of polygons into the models. And this is here taking advantage of the proxy and using the LOD, level of details. Now, this is another technique or technology that is used in video games to optimize the scene and avoid the scene to be slow, to go down in the FPS, in the frame per second. So just like in video games, the more you increase the quality in the objects or in the effects or in the shadows or whatever, the more the scene is gonna be heavy and to render, and so the fluidity it's gonna go down, so it's gonna be slower basically. And this is one effect that you can use to increase a little bit the speed without losing quality. Also here, you can see here you have the possibility to switch on the high quality Cosmos assets, and we're going to talk about Cosmos assets later. But basically these are 3D models and you can use high quality or standard quality. Also here, shadow quality. Now we are using the low quality, but we can increase these to high quality, and of course the scene is gonna look better, but it's gonna take more energy to render everything up. And also the temporal anti-aliasing, also this one here, will increase the quality if you turn this on, but again it's gonna slow down the performance. So it's kind of a balance between quality and performance here in the viewer, in the vision, in the VRAY Vision. And again, we talked about exposure and manual and auto, the fly mode, and the last one here, it's about another really interesting technique, which is called image-based lighting, or IBL. And this is gonna like substitute the standard sun and sky which we are using right now. So in V-Ray, but also other render engine, you can choose if you want to use a standard sun and sky system, physical sun and sky, like the one we saw with the sun visible in the background, or if you want to use an image. Now that image is gonna illuminate everything. So this is why it's called image-based lighting, because the light source is coming from directly from the image, which is usually a HDR image, and it's gonna detect automatically where the light is coming from that image with this turned on. Okay, let's move to the the other one here. This is pretty simple because this is actually what you can do like in other software like Photoshop or other photographic correction, color correction. So you can change again the exposure, and this time we're working like with the pixels, so you can change the luminosity or the contrast right here. You can change the saturation, make it black and white, or make it really intense coloring. There you go. Or find the correct balance, of course. And also temperature if you want like a warmer look or a colder look. And then we have the tint if you want to have something more dramatic or well, more colorful. Okay, and that's it. Now if you want to save this setting here, you can also save it. If you click on save, choose a folder, and in this case I've saved this as post 1 vision cc. This is the format, so I can open it up again. I can do load and load up that particular setting by double clicking. There you go. This was a previous setting that I used, so I can save and load it. And again, this is just like post-production, something like that you can do also in Photoshop or After Effects and other similar software. Now the last one is the output or the export. So this is where we are gonna save the image or the animation, but we will talk about the animation later on. So we will focus on the top part here. So the first thing is just to select a folder, of course. In this case, I've selected this folder here called rendering. And then you can choose an image format. Depends on what you need to do with the image. And also you can create something similar to an HDR if you render here in the camera type and you use the spherical panorama. So basically here you can change the camera type and you can create these files that can be used with virtual reality, VR technology. So if you have like visors or something like that, visors, you can use this type of files, and you can change the resolution mode from the window to the project now. Here you can also increase the size multiplier and you can create 2K, 4K. Well, the limit is 8K here. So you can increase and multiply the resolution. The higher it's gonna be, the more quality you will have, but also you will need to wait more. So let's change this and bring it back to the vision window. Also here you have the multiplier, and let's set this to 1. So it's gonna be exactly what we see here in the vision window. And I've already made some export here. So again, just pick your path and then you can click on the export when you selected the folder. So in this case, I want to use this folder here and choose a name for your rendering. So it's gonna be like test 2 and save. Okay. And then you can click export. And that's it. Now you can open up the folder again and you will find, there you go, this is the last one here. And you can see also these are the other technologies. So this one here is the panorama, like 360 panorama, and can be used for HDR, can be used for creating backgrounds, or it's kind of a sphere flattened in an image. So it's it can go into a sphere. This one here is the 6 box, and these are the other panoramas divided into different images. So if we go back here to camera type, the spherical panorama is that sphere which has been flattened out into an image, and it's similar to HDR, and we're gonna see those later. And the cube map 6x1 is the single image with 6 different views, and the VR cube map 6 images are the 6 different images. And you can use this again with virtual reality technologies, visors, but also simple websites that supports spherical panorama, for example. So this will be all for this video, and thanks for watching. If you have your questions or suggestions, please write them into the comments. So this will be all. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.